Of the many different kinds of mascot horror, one that's always stuck out to me is mascot horror made by YouTubers. As in, mascot horror for the fans, by the fans, so to speak. While most people probably think of Indigo Park when hearing this, games like Poppy Playtime or Bendy and the Ink Machine were made by people who started out as YouTubers at one point or another. And now we have a new addition to this kind of mascot horror with the release of Glitched Out Chapter 1. Glitched Out is a game made by Super Horror Bro, who regularly covers various mascot horror projects on his channel. From what I can find, this game has been in development for a little over a year, with help from other people in the mascot horror YouTuber scene, such as ML Spence and It's Just Jord. So let's dive in head first and find out if Glitched Out is just another generic game that'll quickly be forgotten, or the start of something great. Looking at the chapter's Steam page, we apparently play as someone named Lex, who has found herself trapped in an alien research facility that she needs to escape from, with the help of her handy AI companion Chip. This is honestly a pretty decent setup for a mascot horror game in my eyes, and the accompanying screenshots give us a look at the game's art style as well as its enemies. One last thing I want to note about the Steam page is that this game is completely free to play, which I think should definitely be factored in when talking about it. Anyway, let's finally dive into the game. Opening the game up for the first time, we're greeted with a pretty cool looking menu screen. The font choices for the various options, the gorgeous artwork, and the music all come together to create a pretty awesome menu. And hey, there's a noticeable lack of any merch buttons. All of that aside, let's do a quick recap of the events of this game for anyone who hasn't played. The game opens with a cutscene where our character wakes up in a room full of gas and flames as an alarm blares in the background. We crawl through a vent to avoid the fire, grab a keycard, and enter a large office room. After solving a puzzle to open this door, we pick up Chip, our AI assistant who really enjoys rambling for minutes on end. We're then introduced to the 3 different hacking puzzles for this game, which we'll talk about later. We then enter a main atrium area and solve another hacking puzzle, before descending down to the basement underneath. We then do a short stealth mission before doing 2 fetch quest missions and jumping down a massive hole. Again, we'll talk about this later. We then do a few more hacks before a climactic chase scene and an elevator crash that sends us plummeting deeper into the facility. The first part of this game I want to discuss is the characters, as we are talking about a mascot horror game after all. One thing I actually really respect about this game is that it doesn't really have a mascot in the traditional sense, as in there's not just one enemy. There are multiple different types of characters that do different things, which we'll talk about now. First we have the Seeker, who is kind of the mascot of this game, but not really. I think the best way I can describe this character design is if Satan himself, an ant, and Nightmare Balloon Boy were all combined into one freak of nature. This character is also completely blind, which I'll talk about more when we get into gameplay. I think it works well as both a mascot horror design and as some kind of weird alien entity, but there's nothing about it that really sticks out to me. There's also a log for this character, which reveals that it was captured in a cave system where it killed several people before being locked away, which is cool, I guess. While I do think this is a pretty solid character overall, there's one aspect of it that I absolutely dislike, and it's the jump scare. My problem with this jump scare is that it's just not scary or even cool to watch. It's just an extremely basic and slow animation that honestly really underwhelmed me. If we do end up seeing more of this guy in Chapter 2, I really hope his jump scare is remastered to actually look good, instead of just boring. Still a solid character overall, though. Next up we have these plant dudes called the Lurkers, who show up in the lower level of the facility and remind me of the piranha plants from Super Mario every time I see them. I don't think this design is as strong as Seeker personally, but it still works decently well in my opinion. This character's log also reveals that they were discovered in mine shafts, where they also killed multiple people before containment. These guys also have a jump scare, which is much better than the Seekers in my opinion. The final character of this chapter is Celeste, this weird Cyclops thing wearing a trench coat and hat. Honestly, I think this design is pretty neat, but I still prefer the Seeker. Celeste's only role within the game is to sell you items from her shop. She has 2 items that forward the story, as well as a secret story item that I'll discuss later. Overall, I'm glad that for only being in Chapter 1, there's actually a decent variety in characters, instead of just one threat like most modern mascot horror. The next topic I want to talk about is the gameplay, which is where this game gets a little bit interesting. The main gameplay of this game is doing these hacking puzzles, which are small little minigames that you complete in order to unlock doors. We have the square puzzle, where you need to press either A or D when the square passes over these little malware guys, the matching puzzle, where you press E when the flashing symbol matches up with the current symbol on screen, and the memory puzzle, where you simply memorize and input a code. I think these minigames are pretty fun and relaxing, honestly. However, I do hope future chapters add more of them for extra diversity. We also have a stealth section in the game with the Seeker, where you need to do 2 hacking puzzles while staying crouched to avoid him. See, as I mentioned earlier, this character is completely blind, and that combined with its low intelligence means that it can't detect you as long as you're crouched. This section is fine to me, but I think it would have been better to have to constantly avoid the Seeker instead of just right after solving both puzzles. Right after this section, we need to do 2 fetch quest missions for Celeste so that we have enough eyeballs to purchase a keycard and a flashlight from her shop. Oh yeah, by the way, Celeste only takes eyeballs, don't question it. I do like the idea of having a mid-game shop in a mascot horror game, however its only use is to forward the story, when I think it definitely could have been used for some extra features or bonuses. I really do hope that Celeste or some other shopkeeper exists in Chapter 2 with non-story items, as I think that would really help elevate the gameplay and make it feel less linear. After jumping down this big hole in the floor with nowhere else to go, we find ourselves even deeper within the facility. Down here we need to do a few more hacking puzzles while avoiding lurkers that will pop out of the wall. To thwart them, you simply need to just flash your light and they'll leave. I think this section is pretty neat, with some cool QuickTime events and more fun hacking puzzles. However, there is one more section of gameplay to climactically end this chapter, and you'll never guess what it is. What do you mean you knew it was a chase? Yeah, you're right. Yep, it wouldn't be Chapter 1 of a mascot horror game without a short chase scene. And, I mean, it's fine. I do like how the lurkers are incorporated into the chase. However, while there are initially signs directing you on where to go, near the end whether or not you run into a dead end and die is just up to chance, which is something plenty of horror chases do that I really hate. After the chase, we electrocute the Seeker, Chip gives us a rather devious expression, and we go plummeting deeper into this place. Overall, the gameplay here is definitely better than a lot of mascot horror games, besides a few. However, I do think it could have had a few more original ideas and expanded on those that it did introduce. Still a solid showing, though. For the last section of this review, I want to kind of split it up into 2 mini-sections on story and visuals. Starting with the visuals, I really do like this game's unique style. It basically combines the styles of Poppy Playtime and the original Bendy, with industrial environments done with a hand-drawn aesthetic. I really do appreciate how this style is pretty unique for mascot horror, as everything generally tries to be as realistic as possible, or very over-the-top cartoony. Not that those styles are bad or anything, just that a mix of both is a nice change of pace. In terms of story, from what I can gather, we are an employee of an alien research facility that has completely lost her memory after some incident, and needs to escape on account of all the entities escaping and everyone else evacuating. If you buy the tape from Celeste's shop that I mentioned earlier, it plays a video talking about recruiting people to explore other worlds to track down various entities. So I'm pretty sure that's what's happening here. And by the way, yeah, we are playing during a massive security incident instead of a decade after like most others. It's basically like Poppy Playtime if we were playing during the Hour of Joy instead of after it, which would be an awesome fan game idea, by the way. Someone needs to get in on that. Also, rather than being experiments that went wrong, the entities we encounter here are instead aliens from other worlds that have been captured and contained for experimentation. Overall, the story of this game avoids a lot of classic mascot horror plot pitfalls, which is very nice to see nowadays. To sum things up, Glitched Out Chapter 1 is a game with some decently fun gameplay, refreshing visuals, and a pretty unique story. However, I do hope that future chapters focus more on creativity, innovation, and less linear gameplay in order to continue to stand out amongst their contemporaries. I think I'm feeling a good 6.5 out of 10 on this game. Pretty cool, but could have been better. But anyways, that's all from me. I'm Supersonic, like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.